please welcome the General Manager of Singita, Rwanda, Lydia Nzayo, and the General Manager of the Four Seasons Hotel New York Downtown, Thomas Carreras, and the General Manager of Heckfield Place, Olivia Richli, in conversation with Skift columnist Colin Nagy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Colin Nagy. I'm joined with some of the most interesting and dynamic GMs in the world today. And I think what we're trying to do is understand what the recovery feels like at the level of the practitioner. What does it feel like kind of with hotels reopening and going from the macro into practice? And what I wanted to start with today is, Thomas, we've talked about the recovery at a very macro level, but you sit in New York, a very dynamic reopening happening. What is the feeling like, when someone walks through the front doors of the Four Seasons downtown today?
Thank you very much, Colin, for asking. Hello, everyone. So what is interesting is that New York went from, a year and a half ago where we were the hardest hit by the pandemic and the city really shut down. Yesterday, Governor Cuomo announced that the city had more than 70% of people vaccinated, which really gave, a wonderful feel to the city. People are coming back again here. Now, what is very important to us when you walk through the Four Seasons doors is that you feel that our life has not changed in the sense that we have added more value to your stays. There's flowers, there's always the service, there's always the staff. But we wanted to make sure that we were also sensitive to the needs of the travelers, which is obviously safety, and ensuring through our program called Lead with Care, which is an association of a very high level in our hospital that really gave us, guidance onto how to receive guests in the safest way, but also how to ensure that our employees are working in the safest possible way. The energy level is great. I think everyone is enjoying re-welcoming guests. And I think we have learned through this year being closed how important it was and what our mission really was, which is, enriching people's lives.
Olivia, talk me through, your philosophy and what you're doing with Heckfield Place, and why, is that even more relevant for what people want today in terms of their experiences?
Well, Heckfield's an hour to the west of London, and it provides a huge amount of space and nature. And I think through COVID in the last year, everyone in London has been locked up and desperate to escape. So from the moments when we've been allowed to, it seems that we had put everything in place that they were desiring to get out into nature, to reconnect with trees, to walk the land, to have a farm where we grow everything. Our philosophy behind everything is as much as possible is grown on our estate. We have a biodynamic market garden, which means we use no chemicals. And it seems to be more and more that people are wanting to come and learn about how that works, how they can apply it to their own lives and eat that produce in our restaurants. So I think we didn't plan it as the timing for this, but it's just meant Heckfield has been really perfectly placed. And the demand that we've seen in the UK from people who can't travel, the Brits who usually travel to the US or with you on safari, Lydia, or have gone to the Maldives or the Caribbean, are desperate for holidays. So we seem to have fitted in very nicely and have been so busy whenever we've been allowed to open.
And Lydia, Rwanda has been very, very strong in terms of getting tourists back with their protocols. How have you guys been doing in Rwanda? Did you rethink anything? Give me just a kind of state of play with what you're doing with the property there.
Hi, Colin. Yes, as Olivia had said, she said some very nice words about nature. And if I have to think of Rwanda, where I am located, and the rest of Africa, the country has done a lot in order to attract tourists again, with the safeties and all the protocols that we've put in place. And we've been very happy to see guests coming back on the property since we reopened last July. And it's important when guests come, we all know that we've been craving being with family, being with friends, but things are different now. And what we have done is really to think of what does the guest want now? What does the guest need? They need to feel safe. They need to feel in a healing place. As we said, nature is a healing place. We all know that being connected with nature, having beautiful views, being able to rest and to relax is what the guests really wanted. So we've worked around those themes of nature, reconnection, wellness, And we've adapted that. We've refined our experience so that the guests could find their space. With the food experience that we give, we do less is more, as we say. And this has really been the focus for us as a brand.
What I really respected that you did with Singita and the rest of the team is, as people were not traveling, you used virtual game drives, you used sound and texture to almost remind them of the experience that they were trying to, that they would want to come back to. Talk to me about your marketing and using those kind of touch points as we were going through the worst of this.
The important thing when all this started was to think about the guest and to stay connected with them. We didn't want them to be at home and forget about traveling. We know that we can travel, but what can we do to stay connected with the guest? So we did these live game drives. We were thinking of families and everyone sitting at home in a closed space. You can't go out, and how awesome is it to be able to watch on your screen with your family, with your friends, or just by yourself, being in the bush, seeing an elephant, listening to those sounds. It's really what the guest needed, and I think everyone needed it at that moment, to be connected with nature, to being outside of your four walls and to feel that you are traveling. So we put a lot of emphasis on that. We created some sounds that guests could listen to animals, having the feeling that they were connected with nature. And we wanted as well to stay connected with the trade, which is very important. So we did a lot of interactive sessions with the trade. We did some very nice touches, which I enjoyed particularly, was sending videos to guests for their birthday, for the time that they were supposed to come on the property, sending them a message from the entire team. We felt that guests loved that connection, and it allowed them to stay in touch with us and to remember us at the time that they will be able to travel once again. Especially, if I may add, Singita is an ecotourism brand, so it's important that guests stay connected to us by thinking, I want to come back to Africa one day. I'm not canceling my trip, but I still want to be able to come back.
You were playing the long game with your customers as opposed to thinking of the transaction. It's keeping that relationship up. And now, Olivia, you've worked with some of the best brands in the world. You grew up with Amman. You're at a pristine, beautiful property now. How are you thinking about maintaining your guest relationships and kind of playing the long game and keeping those up as opposed to just more of a transaction? How do you build that relationship over time and keep it up?
I think it was that same feeling when we went into lockdown. It was all of us sitting together, and it's like, how do we connect to our guests? How do we make sure that they remember Heckfield, remember all the things we do here? And yeah, we all went online. We all went digital. We started doing IGTV performances of all the assembly events, which is the cultural program we have here at Heckfield. So a lot of the speakers and workshops that we have worked with over the last 2 years all created amazing short videos. And so those are still all on our IGTV. The spa took meditation, yoga, and personal training classes online with the Bothy Hour. And so those are available for anyone to log into. And with our mailers, we increased them. We were doing them every couple of weeks and sharing everything that was growing on the estate, pictures of the produce. And with everything that was growing here, we didn't have going to the hotel. We then filled produce boxes. And so we were selling those within our community, and then in London through Sky Gingel's restaurant there. The Spring to Go became the place where all our veggies and fruits and flowers and all our dairy produce was being sold in London. And this has actually opened a new revenue stream for us. And now we have the shop in Notting Hill, which is selling our produce, which we never planned. We now have a grocery outlet in London selling the produce as well as at the hotel.
Cool. Thomas, I want to turn to you. A great GM has to be a kind of conductor, right? You have to be overseeing the experience, but you also have to be overseeing and inspiring a staff. So as you guys have been hiring, building back the staff, how have you been thinking about sourcing that talent, teaching them the ways of Four Seasons? How are you thinking? How are you having to be a coach and kind of a nurturer as you get everything back up and running?
Thanks. It's a good question, and one we have reflected a lot on. We've been very fortunate, during our closure, and we were closed for 9 months. We really wanted to be able to keep the team we had selected 5 years ago for the opening, because we had invested a lot in them. And working here is more than working for a hotel. It's really belonging to a family, and we're really close to everyone. We have seen them getting married, having children. And the interesting part is that a bit like what we do with our clients, investment with our employees, we're not dating, we're not being transactional with them, and we're not just there when we need them. And it was very important for us to show our leadership and to be able to be present when they were not there, and connecting with them and being thoughtful about, sending videos and messages on a weekly basis, and, reaching out, doing charity work for them. And when they all came back, we wanted to make sure that they also had a sense of how the world had evolved, and teaching them that the expectation and the needs of the guests were different, and we were asking ourselves new questions. One of the transition was, we're not here to do transactions anymore. We're not here to give keys against credit cards to get people into rooms. But really the objective is, how do we connect and create memories? How each interaction become memorable in a way that the guests say, I don't remember how I got to my room, but this person was just amazing. And, I really was happy to get to know a person. So the shifting was really to be able to say, we need to be meaningful. We need to be purposeful. We need to be thoughtful. Don't think of the transaction, you master it. Think, what is it that you need to know about that guest? What that guest needs to know about us? And how do you understand his needs in this new world so you can adjust the way you address him, responding not anymore to this, drill that we used to have to show where the spa is and where the restaurant is, but more into, what do you need? What is this visit really about? And we have learned that the guest is traveling in a very purposeful, meaningful way. And when people would just, at times just passing by through hotels to have the night and then leave, the people traveling today are people that are really here for reasons. And when you start entering in those conversations, and the staff has done that incredibly, you get to know the guests so much more, and I think you can respond so much better to their new needs.
And Thomas, a follow-up on that is, I think Four Seasons did an incredible job in terms of the protocols and having everything in place for safety. But it requires a certain level of finesse to take this rigid structure, which is important for safety, but having the warmth and the touch points. So how did you guys think about that?
Yeah, that was really, a great transition. I think the first thing that's really exciting when we were welcoming employees back is that a lot of the employees had reached out to me and said, Thomas, I'm not comfortable taking the subway back, and I literally don't know how safe it is going to be welcoming, 100 people a day without really knowing, what was the exposure. And for us to be able to say, our company has invested millions in making sure that we learn from the best people in hospitals to be able to provide you the safest workspace possible. And this is everything we do. So suddenly you take that weight off the shoulder from the employee. And I think the employee coming back without the intensity of the world around them, and the nervousness about not really knowing if they are at risk, was a huge help. And second is that because we invest so much in the people potential, and we invest so much in the connection, the mask was a great way to be able to say to people, the mouth is not anymore what people look at. They look at our demeanor, they look at our eyes, and they listen to us in a way that they really feel if we are invested in them. And, I've been so impressed with our employees, coming to work on early stages when we opened in November, where cases were still high, was also a bit of a risk. We thought, are we doing the right thing? And the way our employees came back, and how welcome they were to be there for the clients, and how engaged and how excited they were, really showed us that we had done the right things for them.
And I think a good segue to talk to Lydia is, we have a hotel is no longer an investment asset or a building that sits in a place. It's part of a community. And in Rwanda, you guys are thinking about lots of things in terms of sustainability, in terms of your role in the ecosystem. But how did community kind of play a role with the hotel and all of the neighboring villages and the neighboring area?
I think what we've seen lately with the shift of the world after COVID is that guests and everyone in general has put a lot of emphasis on the knowledge, on wanting to learn new things. That's what we didn't have much to do during all the time of lockdown, depending on each country where we were, it was longer or shorter. But we had a lot of time on our hands, and we've seen many people wanting to learn, to read, to learn how to do cookies. So how do we put it in our world, in a lodge where, again, we're a conservation brand, and community is a very, very important part of Singita, and that's the reason we are in the countries where we are. So we had to be conscious of the potential risks of COVID, of exposure, but in everything that we've done, we've always tried to teach guests of where they are and involve the communities in this, to have local artisans making tailor-made clothes for the guests. Guests who come to Rwanda usually come for the bucket list gorilla experience. So we have communities at the lodge carving gorilla sticks for the guests, and that's an amazing memories that they keep their entire life. Most of our guests, our staff, are from local communities, and we try to really engage with guests, explain to them where we are. We are in Rwanda, why is Singita in Rwanda, and the impact actually that the guest is having on the community. In our side, when they pay the gorilla permits, part of that income, which is generated, goes back to local communities, to building infrastructures, hospitals. And when the guests know that they're part of it, they understand that they see the bigger picture. I'm not only going on holiday, but it's a holiday with a purpose, which I think is something that many people want to do now, to do a travel with a purpose, which is meaningful.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is it's no longer just the, selfishness of just needing to get away, knowing that your capital is actually applying to environmental conversation, community sustainment, things like that, which is very powerful. Olivia, I wanted to ask a kind of a marketing question for you and a sales and marketing question. What we've seen in the US as things have reopened is there has been kind of price gouging from some brands. People are 5xing their rates, and it is a little bit dangerous. And you are very much a luxury property that's very in demand with the kind of great and good that live in London and elsewhere. How do you find the right balance of rate versus kind of long-term thinking? Can rate spiral too high? How are you guys finding that medium?
Well, I'm really old school when it comes to rates, and Adrian Zecker taught me everything I know. And so we don't revenue manage here. Our rates have stayed the same, and I think our guests appreciate that. Last year, at the very beginning of the pandemic, we thought that we'd see no business, so actually we lowered our rates at the very start, and we saw huge demand from people who'd never come here before. What we have ended up having to do is actually cap our level of occupancy, because the demand has been so great that we haven't been able to deliver the level of service and detail that I think would damage our brand if we were doing something that wasn't good enough. So to ensure that we can look after everybody beautifully for the rest of this summer, we've capped our occupancy and held our rates, and are happy to see that we're absolutely full for the rest of the summer. But it's a different approach, I think. I learned from Mr. Zecker to I think gouging just at the end will come back to bite you. You're not being honourable. What we're offering is, we know the value of it, and we know how much it costs to do it, and we love having loyal customers and guests. Our repeat business is huge. After the third year, we're up to 27%, and in a year when we were closed most of the time, it's so far works really well for us.
I love you said that, because it's the long game thinking, and what people fail to price in is when you are reasonable and give someone a great experience for the price that is within the realm of the reasonable for what it is, they're going to tell 5 friends. There is the compound interest that kind of comes from word of mouth that I think is very powerful. And so I've written about this recently, and the notion of some of the short-termism is dangerous. So I'm very happy to hear that the spirit of Mr. Zecker kind of remains in your approach, which is exciting.
And it's our owner. His view is that this estate needs to be here in 100 years' time. So It's to put foundations and building blocks in place to ensure that we're sustainable, that we've built a really strong following of guests that keep coming back in a super competitive market. So it's with his blessing as well.
Which I appreciate, and I'm hearing commonalities here, because we know Singita has a 100-year vision when it comes to sustainability. Your property, wants to be there for 100 years, and I think to round off our conversation, Thomas, with reopening, reevaluating your relationship to the city, how are you going to take license to kind of push the Four Seasons brand? How are you thinking about partnerships? How are you thinking about your local community? How are you adding a little bit of lifestyle flair into what you're doing with the property?
So thanks for asking. Going back to one of the elements that we're just discussing, and I wanted to add something. I think in the past, we always looked at yielding as demand equal ADR, higher demand, higher ADR. I think in today's world where we talk about gouging, I think what is important is to keep in mind that ADR should be always in relation to value proposition. And the higher the value proposition, the higher the ADR. And that's how you build a relationship. And, you talked about compound interest. It's the same than in the market. The long run, the success long term is to be able to have compound growth slowly and to build a relationship with those clients that always feel like they have the best value despite the ADR. And I think the risk when you bring the ADR very high, but your value proposition is flat or lower because some people have reduced services, this is where you start breaking that relationship. To answer your second question, Colin, I think it is becoming so important that when people travel, and I think Lydia had said that, they're looking for a very different type of travel. They want to learn. It's much more purposeful. They're choosing cities not just randomly, but because they really want to be in sync with the city. And there was a panel right before us that talked about luxury and lifestyle together. I think resorts are doing it very well because they always have been somehow lifestyle. But I think having a great component of luxury and lifestyle is crucial today. And lifestyle is really the art of living. How do we engage our customers in the art of living in the city? So here we can ask yourself, what is the art of living in New York City? So the four pillars are really, fashion, art, I would say wellness, and, obviously culinary. So how do you bring that to life in a hotel? So we are more than just beds and tables with the room service menus, but we're really lifestyle. And I think, here at the Four Seasons downtown, we're really working on bringing the city in and having collaboration, partnership, and activations. So one we're doing is that we have connected with, the grand chef of downtown. We talked about Danny Myers and others and said, would you have fun putting two of your favorite dishes with us in our in-room dining menu? And they love that because, that collection of, art together is really fun. We reached out to some of the very famous bakeries around and said, we have a beautiful lobby. We want to activate it. Would you want to do a pop-up and take over the lobby and be able to have your, croissant and your expertise there displayed as an event that lasts for months, and then we go to the next. We connected with Marc Jacobs and we said, wouldn't that be fun to display your fashion with an icon of luxury and do something together? And we put together a great, sweatshirt that says, Marc Jacobs, Four Seasons Downtown by Marc Jacobs. And I think being playful and being able to bring the craftsmanship of the city and within the hotel together and have fun and display that in multiple levels is really something that, I think clients look forward to. And, as we talk about compound and future, it's about creating, activations and collaboration that changes. So you come in January, it's different than February. You do a partnership with a company that does scent, and, you certainly scent the entire hotel. And this is just a memory for that stay. And next time you come, you have a new memory and new activation that happens. And, as people travel, they want to be able to be more playful in their stays.
No, I think what I'm hearing here is hotels need to be much more than hotels, right? They need to be hubs. They need to be curators. They need to do the things that they need to do well, which is the nurturing and the attention to detail. But also there's new roles, and you're feeling it. I'm in New York today, and you're definitely feeling it on the streets. And I'm hoping the rest of the world feels that soon as we kind of renew our leases with the experiences that we want in the world. But with that, all of our viewers, these are some of the most enlightened hoteliers in the world. So go check out their properties, go stay with them if you want to have an incredible experience. And thank you so much for your perspective today. I'm very, very honored to share the stage with you.
Thank you, Colin.
Colin.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.